Today's podcast is about feeding raw food, raw meats or raw veg to your pets. The BARF Diet, which stands for Bones and Raw Food, is a common trend amongst pet owners who believe that perhaps dogs evolved from a raw meat eating and scavenging dog, and therefore that feeding raw is a more natural way to feed the dog. Another possible reason pet owners feed raw is through disillusionment with the pet food industry, having had perhaps a previous dog that suffered from digestive problems as a result of various pet foods. However, I am opposed to the feeding of raw foods, be it meat or veg, to our pets, and this trend is in sharp focus again this week with a new story in The Guardian, which is published also in scientific veterinary journals included, about the death of a cat in the US state of Oregon through the feeding of raw turkey. This cat tested positive for avian influenza, the H5N1 virus. US state vets likewise tested the cat's raw turkey diet and found that this turkey contained high levels of the H5N1, which was a genetic mix to the H5N1, which killed the poor cat. There is alarm now in the US at this jump of the avian influenza into the cat, as geneticists have confirmed that the cat's immune system can be a genetic bridge for the avian influenza virus. Again, as I say, in sharp focus, due to the death of farm workers from the H5N1 virus. A couple of workers with chickens died during the summer on farms from working with chickens infected with H5N1. And in the state of Montana, I believe, a farm worker working with beef cattle died from H5N1, avian influenza virus, believed to be contracted from beef cattle carrying the influenza virus. I would like to give you 5 reasons not to feed raw diets to your pet, be it dog or cat. And as I say, this viewpoint is topical and in sharp focus as we see news coming out about the danger posed by avian influenza in raw diets. My 5 reasons not to feed raw begin as follows. Firstly, dogs in particular are omnivores. Dogs are not carnivores. They need vegetables, they need minerals, vitamins, carbohydrates, proteins, and so on. They need a balanced diet, just as humans do. A balanced diet is very difficult to achieve through feeding raw. Any imbalance in the micronutrients, minerals, vitamins, or protein can have detrimental health results in the dog or cat fed raw. I've had many consultations over the years with dog and cat owners seeking advice about how to feed raw diets, and not being a nutritional specialist, as a general practitioner in the veterinary industry, I have always had to advise dog owners in particular that a balanced diet is extremely difficult to achieve in feeding a raw diet. The second reason why I advocate never feeding a raw diet is to do with the microbiome. The microbiome is the word now used to describe what we understand to be the gut flora. Dogs in particular have eaten cooked food for many, many, many generations. Dogs have been domesticated for upwards of 40,000 years. Cats have been domesticated for 12,000 years. For many generations of that time, they have eaten firstly human leftovers and more recently properly cooked pet food throughout the 20th century. For many generations, dogs have eaten cooked food. The microbiome, or the gut flora of our pets nowadays, no more resembles the microbiome or the gut flora of their wild ancestor than my gut flora resembles that of a caveman. Our pets nowadays are just as domesticated as we are, and with that domestication comes the propensity to eat cooked foods, and nowadays indeed the need amongst our dogs and cats to have cooked food. My third reason not to feed a raw or a BARF diet is to do with disease. Raw meats carry parasites such as Echinococcus and Trichinella, and bacteria such as E. coli, Salmonella, Campylobacter, Giardia, Clostridium, Listeria, and sometimes many more. Freezing meat or frozen meats are not free of these bacteria. Indeed, freezing meat with a view to feeding it later is not a protection against these bacteria. The only way to protect meat from contamination with these bacteria is through thorough cooking. All of these bacteria are killed by cooking. Indeed, the H5N1 virus within that contaminated turkey meat would have been killed by cooking. So, as I say, frozen meats are not safer. All of these harmful bacteria, which are present in many of our meats, are all killed by cooking. All of these bacteria can make your dog sick. I promise you, if you feed raw meat regularly to your dog or cat, you'll be a regular at your vet's through frequent bouts of vomiting and diarrhea, unfortunately, which your pet will experience. My fourth reason for never feeding a raw meat diet or a BARF diet to your dog or cat is to do with zoonosis. Zoonosis is the term we use to describe diseases or pathogens which can transmit from an animal to a human being. Handling meat containing any or all of these bacteria puts you, the human handler, in your own kitchen at risk. Indeed, feeding raw meats to these dogs poses a further risk in that your dog's gut flora has been shown through research to contain higher levels of many of the harmful aforementioned bacteria in dogs that have been fed raw diets. Dogs will shed many of these bacteria for prolonged periods of time after and during feeding raw meats. Any and all of these bacteria can be zoonotic, can be transmitted to humans in the house. Those greatest at risk from bacteria such as E. coli, Giardia, Campylobacter and Salmonella will be children under 5, immunocompromised and the very elderly. Your dog being fed raw regularly will shed many of these pathogens or harmful bacteria through urine or feces. And as I say, cooking protects both your dog and its diet from these bacteria. My fifth reason for never feeding raw and steering clear of the BARF diet is to do with antibiotic resistance, otherwise known as AMR or antimicrobial resistance. Many raw meats and raw foods contain high levels of superbugs such as MRSA. MRSA standing for methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. These are bacteria which have mutated over generations to become resistant to many of our strongest bacteria. These superbugs, such as MRSA, are often contained in raw meats. And the reason why they are present in these raw meats is unfortunately because of the high levels of antibiotics used in our food-producing animals, such as the beef, cattle, pigs and sheep, which become the meat and food that we eat and that our dogs and cats eat. Unfortunately, these superbugs do live in the gut of dogs fed raw regularly, will be shed in the feces of dogs fed raw regularly, and have been shown to be contained in the humans, on the human skin, on the human gut, in the human microbiome of family members adjacent to dogs that have been fed raw. Scientific research has shown a direct link between antibiotic resistance in the human members of a family, in a household where there is a dog fed raw meat. Now, that fifth reason, that is the most serious reason and the most frightening reason that I can think of to never feed raw, because AMR is the single biggest challenge facing both the medical and the veterinary sector in the modern world. I hope these 5 reasons convince you never to feed your pet BARF or bones and raw food diets. My next podcast will help you decipher the myriad diets that are available out there, help you understand the pet food industry a little bit better, and help you choose the correct diet to feed your pet.